Give me a second to get myself set up. I did that last week. All right. Whenever you're ready.
Hello everyone, we are the intern team from Great Western Bank. My name is John Paul Eggert.
My name is Rebecca Shinsato. I'm Simone Whistler.
I'm Nick Pinkham.
I'm John Pagano.
I'm Daniel Emblem.
And we are here today to talk to you about corporate merger and acquisition strategy, and we will be specifically looking into Great Western Bank's recent acquisition of HF Financial.
So for today's agenda, we're going to start off with a brief overview of Great Western Bank's recent company history, along with the understanding of mergers and acquisitions, like acquisition of HF Financial, along with their results. And then we're also going to discuss the future of Great Western Bank and our communication strategy. Great Western Bank was founded in South Dakota in 1935, and while they have been established for a while, they have just recently had some of the most significant history of their time. So, National Australia Bank was a previous owner of Great Western Bank for 7 years, and during that time, they took a 3-year break on all mergers and acquisitions because National Australia Bank wanted to focus their attention closer to home, which was in Australia. And so in 2014, Great Western Bank became publicly traded, and this gave National Australia Bank the opportunity to sell out their shares and in order to focus more on home. And so the current CEO, Ken Carls, also took this opportunity to take a step forward into mergers and acquisition, making their top priority growth for the company.
So we have all heard the term mergers and acquisitions, and they always seem to be lumped together, but what exactly is the difference between the two? A merger occurs when two firms, usually at the same size, decide to consolidate into one company instead of continuing to do business as two separate entities. An acquisition, on the other hand, is when one company takes ownership of another and clearly identifies itself as the new owner. That means that it takes all the good and the bad that comes with the company it is acquiring. One of the biggest advantages to an acquisition is speed and market power. With an acquisition comes instant growth for the company and market penetration. One of the biggest disadvantages to this type of business deal is the possibility for financial fallout. The returns on an acquisition initially may not benefit the stakeholders at all, or at least as determined, and in addition to this, cost saving as well as other factors from this deal may take too long to develop or not develop at all.
And one of the things with mergers and acquisitions is that it creates opportunities for companies. As you can see up here, Ken Carroll's president and CEO of Great Western Bank says acquisitions have been a big part of our past and we intend for them to be a big part of our future. And so one of the recent opportunities that Great Western Bank was able to capitalize on was acquiring HF Financial. And HF Financial, otherwise known as Home Federal Financial, upon the time of the acquisition had valued assets at approximately $1.2 billion and overall stock valued at just under $140 million. And that kind of equated at the time to about $20 per share. And so some of the ramifications of the HF Financial acquisition was that a big bulk, 75% of the common stock of HF Financial directly went into Great Western Bank common stock, and the remaining 25% was exchanged for cash at that time.
Following the acquisition of HF Financial, it can be broken down into two categories. Financial will be the one I'll be covering, and my partner Daniel will be covering the strategic. Since the conception of Great Western Bank in 1935 to its IPO in October of 2014, the stock prices have risen 70% and currently fluctuate between $25 to $31 per share. This is due to confidence in our investors in our acquisition plan. Following the acquisition of Home Federal Bank, the combined entity is worth $11.3 billion in assets and will span between 9 states and will serve 127 communities. With that being said, Great Western Bank surpasses the threshold of $11 billion in assets and will have to adhere to new rules and regulations from the Durbin Amendment. These new rules and regulations consist of more stress testing, a new regulator appointed by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and caps on fees and interchanges.
From the strategical standpoint, this transaction solidifies Great Western Bank's market leadership in the Sioux Falls and the South Dakota region. They already have 23 locations in South Dakota, which is only second to Nebraska, which is a highly agricultural-based economy. This also helps them branch out into the other Midwest states like Minnesota and North Dakota. Branching out allows them to decrease their employee and building costs. This also helps them with their organic growth, which is the business expansion due in part to increased output, customer-based expansion, and new product development. And this also will generate shares, single-digit per share for the following year, closing out of the deal, and also it'll decrease the tangible value, book value loss will be earned back within the next 3 years. So overall, the financial and the strategical results were a success for Great Western Banks.
So the results that my partners just shared with you will play a pivotal role in shaping the future of Great Western Bank. And at this point, you might be wondering to yourself, why was the acquisition of HF Financial such a big opportunity for our company? Well, to put it simply, it opens the doors for future opportunities. And by that we mean we now possess the capability to pursue future mergers and acquisitions. Having recently passed the threshold of $10 billion in assets, we now have more at our disposal to approach future M&A. In the next 2 to 3 years, it is our plan at Great Western Bank to surpass the $15 billion asset mark. And we plan on doing that by looking at potential companies that are low risk and easy to integrate into our existing network. So that being said, we're looking at potential companies between the asset range of $500 million to $3 billion in assets. And this brings us to our current communication strategy. As our CEO Ken Carls recently said in a phone interview with BusinessWire.com, he said, "We're back on the hunt." And what he means by that is we are ready to aggressively pursue a corporate strategy of mergers and acquisitions. So my team and I, we've conducted research, and we now propose as the next step is to acquire the Bank of Colorado. The Bank of Colorado is currently a subsidiary of the larger bank holding company known as Pinnacle Bancorp. Bank of Colorado operates 45 locations throughout the state of Colorado, and their current asset value is right under $3 billion. So it is at the higher end of that spectrum we discussed earlier, but it still falls within that region. We believe it is low risk because it is within that spectrum of $500 million to $3 billion, as well as Bank of Colorado operates in the agricultural investment banking industry, so it would be relatively easy to integrate into our existing network. All that being said, we propose that the next step in our corporate communication strategy is the acquisition of Bank of Colorado, and we believe that it will help better our company for the future. Thank you.
Open the floor for questions now.
Okay. So we're at a minute and a half, which is good. So, Bank of Colorado. Were there other potential acquisition targets that you considered but did not decide to pursue?
There were actually. There was a bank out of Nebraska, which was actually the it was the 7th largest bank involved in agricultural banking. However, they had an asset value at around $8 billion. So that was outside of that spectrum that we want to look at regarding future acquisitions.
Okay. All right. Good, tailored answer. Do you have any other specific questions? I think you answered all my questions. The one bit of feedback I would give you is that Bank of Colorado acquisition, that's really your bottom line. So you gave me a bottom line on top, which I really appreciated, but when you brought up Bank of Colorado, and this is our next step, it came as a little bit of a surprise. And
Okay.
for it to be a surprise that far into the presentation, you want to talk about that right at the beginning.
So rather than that being our communication strategy for the future, you'd see it more as the bottom.
Well,
I guess that would be the bottom.
yeah. So we, for a communication strategy in the future, we're going to be talking about acquiring the Bank of Colorado, and it will follow on our successful recent acquisition of this other bank. So, but yeah, nicely done. Thank you. All right, let me see that.